First time in my career I ever been picked number one. I always had to kind of go out there and earn it and win it. But to be, giving it in the preseason is something that's been different. So I don't remember the last time any team that I was, part of. Even back from the Elizabeth City days and some of the other teams I've kind of coached for that we've been preseason number one. So it's a different place to be sitting at. We've been 3-time playoffs and back-to-back CIAA champs. So. Again, like I said, we're in a position of earning it. I think the preseason rankings are kind of given. What you do at the end of the season is kind of earned. So I think you keep doing, making sure that you stay a CIAA presence, but you remain a national presence as well. I think we've done a lot of things from a national standpoint, that are putting us in a position that, that's what the guys expect now. Everybody associated with the program expect to be able to compete nationally. So we've done that, but first you got to make sure you're taking care of the CIAA. So, and the league has gotten so much better, in terms of that. We had times when the league was extremely good, and then we had some times where people probably would consider the league down, but right now we're in a position where we have a few teams that can compete nationally. So that makes just the conference a little bit more tougher now. You try to stay true to yourself as a coach, but I think you have to definitely evolve, and how this thing going, understanding that, relationships that were built over 4 years and sometimes, 5 years, you have to try to make sure you getting to know your roster in and out on a yearly basis. I say, so that's probably some of the small adjustments that's going to happen for us. I'm used to looking up and seeing guys who've been around, with me 3-4 years. Now we're going to have a few newer guys on the roster than we probably have ever had. But I think we still, even with guys leaving in the portal and, all those guys going to better themselves and put themselves in better situations and things like that they thought, were beneficial to them. I supported it. So my job is still that. My job is still to support guys, whether they're with me or they're not with me. Look up, you have guys like Curtis Allen, who averaged over 6 yards a carry last year. You had a Ramon Brown, from Bluefield State, came to us in the portal. You had Trayvon Tinsley, who came to us, in the portal, who's an all CIAA running back. Not to mention the guys we have on roster, already. Jerome Jones. We have a bunch of talented guys in that room. So it's definitely going to be no different than you've probably seen in the past. In terms of that, it might be a little bit more collective things done, but we want to make sure that we still got a bell cow, and we see that. We see that in Curtis. We see that in some of the other guys that they got the ability to take over games. So we're excited about it. And. If anybody knows me, I'm a running back by heart. That's what I played. That was the first thing I ever coached. So always make sure them guys get the love they need. Glad it's a problem that's not just a Virginia Union problem. It's a state of college football right now. So you have to embrace it and make sure as a coach you coach and thrive through it. So I think while you do have to do a little bit more roster management now. I'm going to make sure we still stay to the things that got us here. And things that got us here are our player development. Sometimes you have to look and make sure you put that on the shelf because, so much of the game now is about talent acquisition. That's the biggest portion of the game right now. So, getting transition to that portion. What I think we've always done a great job of recruiting, and we kind of had a steady flow in terms of that. I think we have a great class of freshmen. We have a great class of transfers. But the guys that have been in the program, the guys that are entrenched in the program that have been there for a couple of years now, we feel good about those guys as well. Ultimate amount of leadership. I think that's the biggest thing that he can provide. At this point, the play is going to be the play. When he gets the ball in his hands, so everybody knows how electric he is. But the play is going to be the play. But in terms of the leadership, making sure he pull a few guys along with him to rise their level. So that's my expectations of him. Again, he's like a guy that's a coach out there on the field. We probably give him something. He's like, nah, coach, give me this. He feel good about it, and you can kind of take that and run with it. But him being a catalyst in that room, we have an excellent quarterback room as a whole. Mark Wright returns. He threw for 2,200 yards last year and 21 touchdowns. And what RJ did. We got some young guys in that room. A young guy, I'm not gonna say a lot about him, but he's special too. So and Miles Derricott, so that who adds a little bit of flavor to that room. So the quarterback room for us is kind of something big right now. And if you don't have one, it's gonna be tough for you to win. You got to have a great trigger man. I think we have a few. Didn't get a long time to enjoy it because off season was a little shorter because we weren't used to playing that deep into December. It definitely, because you already kind of a big name, but I think at that point we kind of became a household name. Not just far as in the region, nationally. So I was extremely proud of the guys, and that name is going to go down in the record book for something that can never be taken away from them. They're the first Virginia Union team to win a playoff game, and not only did they go in there and win a playoff game, they won two. I'm extremely fortunate to be the coach of that group. Regardless if we were named the number one, we want to still get that because, at the end of the day, we are the defending champs, the two-time defending champs. So being in that position, we're going to get everybody's best. But we want it. We embrace the expectations that's kind of been put on us. But, we know we still got to go out there and play. This is the portion now, where like I said, you earn everything. You earn your way back to Durham. Today was a given. You kind of be here. But, on November 15th, we got to earn our way here. We have Brady Myers coming back for special teams. And, again, everybody knows who he is. He's a household name now. In his 3 years, he's been two-time special teams player of the year. But what we were able to do and accomplish in the portal was, add the last year's special teams player of the year in Zaire Tart. So now you look up and you say, all right, over the last 3 years, we have all the special teams player of the years right now on our roster. So that's something that's special. Brady took on some extra duties and kicking off last year and things like that. That went pretty well for him. But he gives us an amazing amount of things through the field goal and the PAT game. So we're really excited about his return, and we added a few young guys to that group that we feel are going to be special too. Offensive line, we have 3 starters coming back. And all of those guys are 2-year starters. So they've won the championship in 23 and 24. So you have Joe Rounds coming back, Matthias Nielsen, Adrian Crespin, those guys with a bunch of other guys who've taken reps, who played, so we feel pretty good about what we have going up front on offense. And on the defensive side, we're going to see a few new faces, but some of the guys you're used to hearing, about, the Isaac Anderson, all those guys are gone. And those guys are like that. Those are generational talents. Guys come along like that every so often. But I think, we got a great amount of depth over there on defense, on that defensive line. Guys like Kamari Fettig, Zachary Weaver. We brought in a transfer from Shaw. That's pretty good for us over there. Makai. So we feel pretty good about what we got going on the defensive side of the ball as a whole. So, but it's going to be a lot of new faces. So, we kind of be expecting that.
Awesome.
RJ turned it on last year, but again, we knew the capabilities that he had. He was just able to kind of show the world last year. But Ricky Key returns. He's been a staple for us. The last 4 years he's been here. And a young guy, Keon Davis, he was one that was pretty good for us last year. He came on real strong in the playoffs last year. Had a great postseason. And we have some other guys like Tart is a wide receiver that does good things in the conference, and the conference already knows about him. So he's going to be a special one. But that entire room, it's a few more guys over there that are ready for their chance to show the world that they can play. If the first year started to happen, it was Charles Hall. He led the nation in yards per catch, and transferred out. He came. Then we had John Giles. He came and did the same thing. Then we had Sidibe. Sidibe finished out. And then right after Sidibe, you get RJ. They come in and blow up the nation in the stats, touchdowns and yards, and he gets an opportunity to leave. So, we feel pretty good about our development of it, but, again, bringing a new one in every year has kind of been tough, but we're ready for the challenge.
My game from as a running back is a little different from Jada's, Jada's more elusive, dead leg. I'm more like straightforward, downhill, smash mouth football. So we just bring 2 different things to the game, and that's what people probably didn't realize about me. So that's probably why I did what I did. I love my O-line dogs. This year, when we continue to do what we do, I will be cooking for my O-line. I love my O-line, everything about them. My favorite moment being a Virginia running back, probably winning, I would say, that Lenore Ryan game. That's probably my favorite moment.
RJ Rosales, quarterback, Virginia Union University. It's everything and more, just establishing myself on the field, off the field, and, just a presence. But nothing's ever given, you gotta earn it, and I feel like I've earned it. A lot of people talk about the journey and, the process. To me, the biggest thing is the company and understanding that, it's strength in numbers, and as a team, as a leader, as a unit, we're only going as far as our weakest link, and I want to get to the point where we have no weak links. My expectations are to win. I don't really get too caught up in the personal accolades because that's where selfishness comes about. And, you know, all it takes is one hole in the boat to get it to sink, and I don't have that in mind for us. It's not bad at all. You know, at first it's a little rocky because, you know, there's egos involved in just you know, the athlete of me. You know, it's supposed to be me, and the competitor Mark Ryder. Well, this isn't how I wanted to play. But then when it come to the understanding is we wear the same color, you know, we're repping the same team, and at the end of the day, we're putting on for the school. And understanding that it's a household. This is Coach Parker's household, and you know, that's my brother. You know, and you have siblings in the household, and whoever Coach Parker wants in the kitchen to cook at the time is going to cook. You know, as long as the family's fair, that's the most important thing. It's hard, you know, kind of lightning in a bottle. I'm at a disadvantage because of my height, but I've never let that stop me. I take it as being blind. You know, you have certain attributes that have to increase. You know, my awareness, my agility, and everybody I've molded my game around from. You know, I want to be able to throw out a platform like Aaron Rodgers. Well, I want to be as smart as Tom Brady. I want to move like Kyler Murray. But I idolize Lamar Jackson. He's from where I'm from. So I try to just throw everything and, you know, obviously just be myself. You know, and I do my best to incorporate everything while still keeping my own identity. I would say atmosphere is a little different, but you know, I'm always in control of my environment. You know, I was laughing the other day. I was talking to my mom. I said, you can shackle 2 bricks to my ankles and throw me in the ocean, I'll still be floating good. So, you know, I'm a product of my environment, and I love where I'm from, you know. But, you know, it's just a blessing to have the opportunity to play. So if they told me to go play in Alaska or Mexico with some cousins, you know, wherever I can play football, I want to play football.